think. So, Mark, we'll bring you back on screen. Far-right county throws out voting machines.
Yes, the Guardian, that guardian of truth, right? Not, has this headline. This is from this past spring. This past spring. Far-right county, talking about California, throws out voting machines with nothing to replace them. Right away, right out of the starting gate, that's absolutely false. They want to replace them with hand-counted paper ballots. And anyway, this is Shasta County, what the Guardian calls a conservative stronghold of 180,000 in the far north of Blue, California. A new vision for elections is taking shape. Wrong again. Hand-counted paper ballots are the longtime tradition. It's not a new vision. Anyway, paper ballots, no machines, and results tallied entirely by hand. What a novel approach. It's a vision predicated on the false belief that voting machines helped to steal the presidency from Donald Trump. The Guardian says that without having anything to base that on one way or the other, and that the system by which millions of Americans vote are unsafe. Okay, so if millions of Americans use it, that makes it safe. Interesting reasoning. But anyway, but in Shasta, they just might make that vision a reality, hand-counted paper ballots. Shasta became a hotbed for far-right politics, wrong, in the pandemic years, and election deniers have found allies on the county's governing board. How dare they, right? The Board of Supervisors. In March, that would have been of this year, the board's hard right majority, that's alleged, cut ties with Dominion voting systems. The infamous Dominion voting systems, one of the big three in the US, by the way, the company at the center of baseless conspiracy theories about election fraud. Oh, really? Baseless. Anyway, we'll move on from there. Much more could be said, but we'll move on from there. Now, this is the Nevada Current, and this is from about a year ago. So a lot of this propaganda has been sown for quite some time. Listen to this headline: a conspiracy-fueled push to count ballots by hand gains traction. See, so you're not just counting paper ballots because it might be logical, it's conspiracy-fueled. Isn't that a terrible crime? Anyway, now we have Nye County, NYE, a rural enclave in Nevada, having stepped forward before Shasta did in California, positioning itself as the epicenter of a Donald Trump-fueled conspiracy. So it's not just a conspiracy, it's a Donald Trump-fueled one about the security of electronic voting tabulators. And I can just kind of summarize. The Nye County Commission voted in March to make the county one of the first to act on the false narratives, that's unproven either way, that machines that count the votes are rigged. County Clerk Mark Kampf, who has falsely claimed that Trump won the 2020 election, as if he doesn't have the right to say that, has said that volunteer voters there will hand count the roughly 30,000 ballots expected in the November election. Across the country, Republicans aligned with Trump have directed ire at electronic voting machines, with Republicans in at least six states introducing legislation this year, that would have been 2022, to ban the use of ballot tabulators: Arizona, Colorado, Missouri, New Hampshire, Washington, and West Virginia. Over 90% of U.S. election jurisdictions currently use electronic voting tabulators, with only the smallest counties opting to count votes by hand. New Hampshire definitely has been a tradition on that one. And Dominion Voting Systems is again in the crosshairs. And voting experts say that using hand counting as the default method to count ballots, which requires that all voters cast paper ballots, is incredibly expensive, burdensome, and time-consuming. It is not expensive. In fact, those voting machines cost hundreds of thousands of dollars in the quantity that they're purchased at, and they often have to be retired, and new models have to be purchased. Excuse me. Anyway, another headline from The Guardian, that guardian of truth again. This is a slightly different nuance, but Wisconsin Republicans, now we're in Wisconsin, vote to fire the top election official as denialists, and this is from this month of this year, as denialists tighten their grip. And so the state Senate in Wisconsin moved to oust the nonpartisan elections administrator Megan Wolf, who became a lightning rod for conspiracy theories. Well, what the Wisconsin Republicans have objected to was Megan Wolf's heavy introduction of unsecure ballot drop boxes and a heavy institution of mail-in ballots way beyond the usual absentee ballot system and all the insecurities and vulnerabilities that created. So those Republicans in Wisconsin have had a reason to do this, a very sound reason. The media distortion here is just absolutely incredible, and we're going to learn more about that today and in the near future here. Now, this slide here, this next one, this is a very important kind of pivot in what I'm reporting today. At the right in this photo is a very well-informed and dedicated gentleman, Garland Favorito. He's shown here. He's of VoterGA.org. That's Voters Organized for Trusted Election Results in Georgia. I'm going to be recording an interview with him tomorrow. And this presentation, as I'm noting here, will reveal highly compelling evidence of widespread election insecurity and inaccuracies in Georgia. And you can extrapolate out what he has researched to these other bellwether states from the 2020 election: Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Arizona, et cetera. And this is just a sampling of what Garland and I are going to discuss. And this really sheds a lot of light on what's going on. To the left is Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger and what he has said. And to the right are some of the rebuttals of VoterGA. And I'll just share a couple of these. One of these is, let me see, Georgia's election system is secure. And the answer to that, numerous experts have provided court testimony and letters to government officials confirming it's not secure. The fourth one down, Raffensperger, Secretary of State, the critics of Georgia's election security are from one of only two groups: election-denying conspiracy theorists or litigants. The rebuttal, critics include cybersecurity experts and computer science professors throughout the country. The demeaning terms used by the author are intentionally designed to deceive the reader. And another, we conducted a risk-limiting audit and a full hand count of every ballot in Georgia to prove that our results were accurate. The rebuttal, VoterGA determined that Fulton County's full hand recount had a 60% batch error rate, falsified tally sheets, 300 plus duplicate scanned ballots, and 4,000 plus duplicate reported ballots. And there's one more where I could cherry pick a little bit more. I'll do the last one. Let me see here. Here we are. We have tests and audits to verify results. Tests cannot verify results because they are run before the results are produced. That's a common refrain from election officials. They'll test machines before elections and tell you they're trustworthy. And the last one, the MITRE report, points out that the vulnerabilities described by Halderman, a University of Michigan computer science professor who is a critic of the voting machines, as operationally infeasible. And the rebuttal by VoterGA, the MITRE report was funded by Dominion itself, produced without access to a voting system, and assumes perfect procedural defenses, which has been called ridiculous by those 29 computer science experts and researchers that I mentioned a few minutes ago. So what I'm going to be interviewing Garland Favorito about is going to really drop a bombshell on all these things pertaining to Trump that I mentioned earlier today by implication, and really show that widespread vulnerabilities and inaccuracies and very probable election theft, in fact, has happened, and they're working like crazy in Georgia and elsewhere to keep their finger in the dike to prevent the flood of truth from realizing itself. So back to you guys. It's a very fascinating thing to watch.
Thank you for that, Mark. An interesting battle. We're told to trust the AI, trust the high technology, but the reality is that we can't do either. And the same systems being used there in America, of course, are used in other countries as well. It's a dangerous situation.